Okay, so Denise, tell me about your dad. What kind of man he is?
Okay, my dad is, first of all, loving and caring. He is somebody who always thinks of others and others people's feelings. Um, he wants to be liked desperately, and he is. It shows. He has lots of friends and family. Always puts other people first.
Yeah, very helpful.
Yeah, and he's a leader through and through. Um, he has to be in charge of everything. A lot of people say that's a Ridley trait. I would say I'm my father's daughter. um, that yeah, he just has to be involved and be at the center.
Okay, so the sporting events, how your dad was so supportive.
Okay. So growing up, for the first 10 years, anyways, it was just Grant and I. Um, and Grant was involved in hockey, and I was involved in competitive swimming from the age of 2. So for me, competitive swimming involved early morning swim practices before school, every day on weekends, uh, and the pools back then were just open at the top, so the humidity was horrendous. So my dad would just sit in the stands and watch me at 6 in the morning swim back and forth and back and forth. Always there, always at my swim meets, always telling me to calm down, saying that it's only a race, you do the best you can, that kind of stuff. And that was just a message he always gave us in whatever we did. He supported us in whatever we did. So yeah, and then Grant with his hockey, and then when Mike came along when I was 10, same thing. Mike was involved in hockey as well. So he was always there, along with my mom, to take us places, because sometimes it would be a hockey practice one place and a swim meet another place. So the two of them were driving and carpooling and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah.
You wrote down here babies. What's that about?
Oh, that was just about when I went through infertility. Um, it was really hard.
Yeah.
And sorry. And my parents wanted so desperately for me to be happy, and I always wanted to have kids and pass on what he passed on to me. So yeah, so he was always, both my parents were always there for me. It was dark days, so that was probably one of the hardest things. And having family around who maybe not got it all the time, but were there regardless, through everything. So, and then when I actually had my babies, it was just such a joyous time, and my dad was so happy for me. And when my kids were little, so I'm talking probably the age of 2 and 1, 2.5 and 1, and younger, my dad would come over and look after the babies on his own. And he even changed diapers. And I don't know what 75-year-old men would do that. Honestly, I don't. So always there for the kids too, and getting right down with them and doing things with them. So that's something that, I mean, having two babies, and the babies that I had, Matthew and Nathan, Nathan never really even crawled. He went straight to running. So it took a lot of energy. And my dad certainly has that even today at 84 years of age. So, yeah.
So that can segue into Santa.
Yeah, so there's a story about a lot of kids are afraid of Santa, especially around that young age, that 1, 2, they get the stranger, they don't really understand Christmas and Santa and all that stuff. But parents continue to want to take their kids to sit on Santa's knee. And some of the pictures are pretty hilarious. Well, we decided that my dad would dress up as Santa. And because I wanted a nice Christmas picture of the kids sitting on Santa's knee. And we hadn't been able to get that. I mean, Nathan took off the moment he saw Santa at the mall, so we didn't get it. So My dad, we had a Santa costume because he also played Santa sometimes at some of the functions and some of our family gatherings. So he walked in the door with Santa's suit on. And I think maybe on an unconscious level, the kids knew that it was my dad. But I don't have a picture. I have to find it. It's the two of them. They're just staring up at him. And it was one of the best shots that I could have got of the two of them sitting on Santa's knee. So yeah, my dad was up for anything.
Hey, Mallory.
No, he's in the shop. So.
Okay, so Florida. Let's talk about Florida.
Okay, yeah. I'll just talk about trips in general. So as a family, we've taken lots of trips together. My parents used to take us all camping. In the early days, we went to Cape Cod. We've done a lot of trips. And then they continued to travel actually with Grant and Brenda a lot when Alan and I were going through all of our infertility struggles. So we had to save up all our money for every $6,000 cycle that went on. So we didn't really go on a lot of vacations, nor could we from a timing perspective. So later on, though, we took a couple trips as a family, and there was two in particular. Well, two types of trips that really stick out in my mind. One was the year that Alan and I decided that we were going to scrap our family vacation and bring along both his parents and my parents. We took a trip down to Hilton Head, and we rented a house, and we all drove down in two vehicles, and it is one of the best trips I've ever had with both Alan's parents and my parents. And my parents and his parents are very, very close. They were actually friends, and that's also a rarity. In-laws know each other, but I mean, half the time, I wouldn't even be around, and they'd be out having coffee together, or I'd phone up and, oh, Bob and Mary are here, or vice versa. So the Hilton Head trip was just an amazing trip for all of us, and I have pictures of that. And then the other trip that we started doing as a family with my mom and dad was our trips to Florida. Alan and I used to go away with my best friend and her family to the Caribbean, but because of my illness, we had to stop those trips. So we decided to stay in North America. So we went down to Florida, a place called Anna Marie Island. And my dad always drove down with Alan. So my dad, Alan, and Matthew, sometimes Grant would be with them, would drive down to Florida. And the Sucks, my mom and myself and Nathan, would take the quick trip down and fly. But those trips I will forever, ever have in my memory. Great trips. Always took family portraits down there. So I have a lot of memories just capturing that, but just a great time. And yeah.
Your dad's always been helpful. I've noticed that since I've known you, of course. And how did he help you learn to drive? There's a funny story you want to.
Oh yeah, driving. I forgot about that. Yeah. So I took driver's ed through the high school program. So, but practicing was a different story. And I wasn't a difficult teenager, but I was an emotional teenager. Let's put it that way. And my dad would take me out, and he actually took a lot of people out driving. I think he took Brenda out, and countless others. But I remember, and I actually just talked to him about this because I felt very bad because it was a big blow up. He was teaching me how to drive, and we're going around the corners. And so his whole thing was, brake gas. And he'd say, brake gas, as we're going around the corner. And that's the way he talked to me when I was driving. And so, I was a bit nervous, and so he would almost be yelling at me, but that's just his enthusiasm, I guess. I don't know. So I guess I got upset and I got out of the car. I think there was some exchange of some words on my part, and I just got out and I started walking, and we were not near our home. And he was just driving beside me saying, Denise, get back in the car. get back in the car. And I'd say, nope, nope. But, you know, those things, even today when I'm going around a corner, you know, he's in my head, brake, gas, you know. And now that the other ones, you know, Sean and Colin and recently Brandon, just, you know, learning how to drive, you know, my kids will be there one day. I probably will be saying brake, gas, you know, and teaching my kids how to drive. Anyways, it's just a silly thing, but I apologized to him very recently for my behavior because I felt bad. He didn't even remember that particular thing. So,
you've got down here recent.
Oh, so just let me go back to that Florida story, by the way.
There was something funny.
Yeah, I forgot about that. So it had to do with our family portraits.
Okay, so what I want to do is I want you to start by saying, you know, great trips down there. When we go to Florida, it was great trip.
Okay,
yeah.
okay, all right, okay. So, you know, our Florida trips were always great. I think we've done, 4 trips down there, and we always do family portraits. And Nathan is extremely difficult to photograph. I'm just an amateur photographer, and I would rather shoot anybody else than him because he's so difficult. He doesn't look, he gets distracted, so it takes a lot to get him to actually A, smile, and B, have his eyes looking at the camera. So we were all sitting there on the beach for our family portrait. So that would be Alan and myself and the 2 kids. You know, my dad couldn't figure out how to get him to look at the camera and to laugh. So my dad decided to pull a moon. So it was totally out there. No, I mean, I don't know if anyone else saw, but we all broke down hysterically. But we have the best pictures from that because Nathan thought it was the funniest thing. And he probably will talk about it or has talked about the times that Dad pulls moons, but it always gets a great shot. So you do what you have to do.
Do you have a shot, because your family photo on the beach has, I can remember one on Facebook where they're really laughing or really big smiles. Was that one of them?
There's one that we're actually hysterically crying. It's so funny. So I have to find that picture.
We broke down. Yeah, if you could.
It
find
was
it.
yeah.
Might
yeah.
even be on Facebook or something like that. Was
Probably
it one of the first years?
Maybe the second year.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then
recent.
So, within the last year, you know, I mean, I'm lucky because, well, I should say we are lucky. We live so. Okay. Start up.
Just say
we're lucky.
So lucky.
Okay. We are so lucky that.
Sorry, hang on. Start again.
Is he being paid?
No, it wasn't. It was the camera.
Oh. Okay.
Are we rolling?
Yeah.
Okay.
We are so lucky in that we live so close to my parents. Some people might say that's not such a good thing, but Grant and I live next door to each other. Mike doesn't live very far, and my parents are, you know, a couple blocks from here. So we're within 10-minute drive of each other. And I feel very blessed that I literally see or talk to my parents every day. And that's been going on for most of my life. We moved out, Grant and Brenda moved out here first, and then we did, and then my parents did, and Mike too. So we're very blessed to all be so close together. So it's been handy for when I've needed somebody, when I've needed the kids picked up from school. My mom and dad were always there to pick the kids up, or if I got a migraine, my dad was over here taking care of things, looking after the dog. I had, you know, before we had kids, we had Simcoe. My dad used to basically, the dog lived at either my in-laws or my parents' place while I was working. So it's been wonderful having them so close. And, you know, and now the tables have turned, and I've had to look after both my mom and my dad, not just me, our whole family. And, you know, I hope he realizes that this is what we do. I've told him over and over, this is what family does. This is what we do for each other. We support each other, and you shouldn't feel guilty after everything you've given me. This is the least that I can do. I can hold your hand. I can take you for your tests. I can hug you. I can wipe your tears, whatever it takes. Give you your dinner, your pills, whatever the case may be. I at least owe them, both my mom and my dad, that at the very least. They have been the best parents that anybody could ever ask for. I know everybody probably says that about their parents, but I there's just nothing more I can say about them. They are just, and my dad, God love him. I mean, as much as he drives me crazy, I drive him crazy. It's what makes him so special.
Would you agree that both of you can be very stubborn? You have the same characteristics as he does, and you come.
Yeah, my dad and I often butt heads because we're so similar and we're so passionate and emotional. I mean, I think I cry enough for the whole world, believe it or not. I mean, and I'm really seeing that in my dad too. My dad's always been a softie. But yeah, we're full of emotion, and we do have very strong opinions. But usually we work things through. He's somebody who wants to be liked by everybody. We were at the skating rink once, and we were sitting in the stands while the boys were skating, and this little boy was sitting on this lady's lap beside us, and my dad, of course, has to say hi to the kids. He loves kids, so he just poked the kid and said hi, like this, hi, and he does this weird thing with his voice. I can't even do it, like that kind of thing, right? Well, the kid was kind of turning away and going like this, and I said to my dad, I said, Dad, stop! You can't do that. Yeah, yes I can. And I said, in this day and age, you can't touch children. I mean, it's just not done. But he thinks he's above and beyond the law. And I often say to him, I'm going to get him a shirt that says I'm Al Ridley and I can say and do whatever I want. Because and the more you tell him no, the more he does it. That's just who he is. And I guess that goes back to him just persevering and not taking no for an answer in his life.
Alan was saying that something to the fact that if you had, I think it was a neurophysicist giving a professional opinion, and that Alan would have his opinion, and talking about nuclear fusion, wouldn't have an idea on the subject, but would still want to get his opinion across.
Yeah, dad, not just an opinion, he thinks he's right all the time. And, even if, and sometimes that's hard, because I've learned in my life that you have to agree to disagree. And that's just something I've learned from being married. Whereas, growing up with my dad, he was always right. And sometimes I think he's mellowed a bit, and I think he's learned that, yeah, sometimes you have to agree to disagree, and then you still feel like you're right. You just don't agree.
And you got to hear something about leadership.
Oh, I think I covered it. I think it's just, yeah.
And so many people have covered it too.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
Anything else you want to say, Denise?
I love you. I love you, Dad, with all my heart. That's it. Okay. Okay, we're done.